We live in an age where the mind never rests. Even in silence, thoughts shout. Even in comfort, worry knocks. You replay conversations that ended years ago. You imagine futures that may never come. Your mind searches for certainty in a world that offers none. Overthinking is not intelligence. It is the mind trying to protect you by exhausting you. And peace does not come from thinking more. It comes from understanding why you think the way you do. Today, we explore 5 deep teachings that help quiet the mind, restore inner balance, and reconnect you with yourself, not by fighting thoughts, but by transforming your relationship with them. Most people wake up every day already tired, not because the body is weak, but because the mind never slept. The moment your eyes open, your thoughts start running. They tell you who you are. They tell you what you cannot do. They tell you what might go wrong, and you believe them. You follow them. You let them lead your life. That is where the trap begins. Because the truth is this: you are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. You are the one who notices them. And the moment you realize that truth, your life starts to change. Right now, as you are listening to these words, thoughts are passing through your mind. Some agree, some doubt, some wonder, some judge. Yet there is a part of you that is watching all of it. That part is calm. That part is silent. That part is not afraid. That part has always been there. You just forgot to listen to it. Awareness is not something you gain. Awareness is something you remember. Think about sitting by a river after a long, hard day. The water keeps moving. Leaves fall into it and float away. You do not chase the leaves. You do not jump in the water yelling at it to stop. You sit, you breathe, you watch, and nothing overwhelms you. Thoughts are the same. They come and go. Some are heavy. Some are light. Some are old. Some are new. But they are not you. They are passing through you. The problem starts when you jump into the river, when you grab every leaf, when you argue with every thought, when you try to control what was never meant to be controlled. That is when the mind becomes loud. That is when anxiety takes over. That is when peace feels impossible. Not because peace is gone, but because you stopped observing and started drowning. There is a student who sits in a classroom staring at an exam paper. The question is simple, but the mind is loud. What if I fail? What if I disappoint my family? What if this one moment ruins my future? The heart races. The hands sweat. The mind spirals. But then something powerful happens. The student notices the thought, not fights it, not obeys it, just notices it. And in that moment the fear weakens, the body relaxes, the breath slows, the mind clears. The same situation, the same exam, but a different relationship with the thought. That is freedom. Awareness gives you space. Space between you and the thought. And in that space you gain choice. Before awareness you react. After awareness you respond. Before awareness every thought feels like truth. After awareness thoughts become information. And information does not control you unless you give it permission. Science backs this up. Studies on mindfulness-based therapy show that when people learn to observe their thoughts, anxiety decreases, stress lowers, emotional balance improves. Not because thoughts disappear, but because people stop believing every thought that appears. The mind still speaks, but it no longer shouts. It no longer rules. You have to understand this. The mind is a tool, a powerful one. But a tool is meant to be used, not to be obeyed. A hammer does not tell the carpenter what house to build. A knife does not decide when to cut. You decide. And your mind should work the same way. Awareness puts you back in the driver's seat. Many people think overthinking means they care more or they are smarter. That is a lie. Overthinking means you are disconnected from awareness. It means you are trapped inside the noise. The strongest people are not the ones with the loudest minds. They are the ones who can step back and watch. You are not broken because you think too much. You were never taught how to observe. From childhood you were told what to think, what to fear, what to chase, what to avoid. No one taught you how to sit with your mind without becoming it. No one taught you that thoughts are temporary, feelings are temporary, but the observer remains. Right now think of a thought that stresses you. Just one. Do not fight it. Do not analyze it. Just notice it. Where does it sit in your body? How does it feel? And then watch it. Stay with it. You will notice something incredible. It changes. It softens. It loses power. Not because you forced it to go away, but because you stopped feeding it your identity. The mind feeds on attention. When you believe a thought, it grows. When you question a thought, it weakens. When you observe a thought, it passes. Awareness is like light, and fear does not survive in the light. Freedom is not about controlling life. Freedom is about understanding yourself. When you know that you are not your thoughts, you stop being a prisoner of your own mind. You stop replaying the past. You stop fearing the future. You start living in the present. And the present is the only place peace exists. This does not mean you never plan. This does not mean you never think. It means you think with intention. You think when needed. And when the thinking is done, you let it go. You do not carry it to bed. You do not carry it into moments of joy. You do not let it steal your now. At first, awareness feels uncomfortable because you realize how noisy the mind has been. You realize how long you have been asleep inside your own life. But stay with it. Do not run. Do not judge yourself. Awareness grows with practice. And every moment you observe instead of react, you reclaim a piece of your power. There will be days when thoughts feel stronger. That does not mean you failed. It means you are human. Awareness is not perfection. It is presence. It is returning again and again to the observer within you. Even when the mind is loud, the observer is still silent. Even when emotions rise, the observer remains steady. One day you will notice something subtle but life-changing. The space between you and your thoughts becomes wider. The pause becomes longer. And in that pause you feel peace. Not excitement, not pleasure. Peace. A deep calm that does not depend on circumstances. That calm was always yours. Freedom begins the moment you stop saying, I am anxious, and start saying, I notice anxiety. It begins when you stop saying, I am afraid, and start saying, I notice fear. Language matters because language shapes identity, and identity shapes experience. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your worries. You are not the voice that criticizes you at night. You are the awareness that sees all of it. And that awareness is strong. It is steady. It is unshakable. When you live from awareness, life slows down. Decisions become clearer. Emotions become manageable. And overthinking loses its grip, not because life got easier, but because you got wiser. Every time you observe, instead of react, you take a step toward inner peace. Every time you watch a thought pass without following it, you break an old pattern. And every time you choose awareness, you choose freedom. You have to understand something about the mind. The harder you fight it, the stronger it fights back. The more you push, the more it resists. Overthinking does not grow because you are weak. It grows because you are at war with yourself. Every time you say stop thinking, your mind hears danger. And when the mind senses danger, it goes into overdrive. It starts scanning every memory, every possibility, every fear, not to hurt you, but to protect you. But protection without awareness becomes a prison. You tell yourself, be calm. The heart beats faster. You tell yourself, do not worry. The worry doubles. You tell yourself, let it go. And the thought tightens its grip. This is not failure. This is nature. Anything you resist persists. Anything you try to bury will eventually knock louder. Because emotions do not disappear when ignored. They go underground. And underground they grow roots. Think about anger. When anger shows up and you say, I should not feel this way, you do not eliminate anger. You just teach it to hide. And hidden anger shows up as sarcasm, as bitterness, as sudden explosions over small things. The same with fear. When fear is pushed away, it does not leave. It whispers. It influences your decisions. It keeps you small. It tells you to play safe. It controls you quietly. There is someone who went through heartbreak years ago. They never talked about it, never cried, never processed it. They told themselves to move on, to be strong, to forget. But years later they cannot trust. They pull away when things get serious. They sabotage love without understanding why. The pain they avoided did not disappear. It simply waited. That is what resistance does. It delays healing but deepens the wound. Inner peace does not come from force. It comes from acceptance. Acceptance does not mean agreement. It means acknowledgement. It means saying, I see you. I feel you. You are allowed to be here. And the moment you do that, something shifts. The emotion relaxes. The body exhales. The mind softens. Because it no longer has to fight for attention. Trauma research shows this clearly. When people acknowledge emotions, distress shortens. When they avoid emotions, distress lasts longer. This is not motivation. This is science. Emotions are like waves. When you let them rise, they fall. When you block them, they crash repeatedly. The goal is not to drown in emotion. The goal is to let it pass through. Most people fear emotions because they think feeling means losing control. But the truth is suppression is what causes loss of control. Acceptance brings regulation. When you allow yourself to feel sadness, it does not destroy you. It informs you. When you allow yourself to feel fear, it does not weaken you. It guides you. Emotions are messengers, not enemies. You are taught to be strong by holding it in. But real strength is holding space. Space for discomfort. Space for truth. Space for healing. Strength is sitting with the feeling without running, without numbing, without distracting. Strength is saying this hurts and I am still here. Overthinking is often an attempt to escape emotion. You think to avoid feeling. You analyze to avoid pain. You replay to avoid acceptance. But the mind cannot solve what the heart is avoiding. That is why no amount of thinking brings peace. Peace comes when feeling is allowed. Think about a child who is crying. If you tell the child stop crying, the crying gets louder. If you ignore the child, the crying continues. But if you kneel down and listen, the crying slows. Emotions work the same way. They want to be heard. Once they are heard, they rest. What you face consciously no longer controls you unconsciously. When you name the fear, it loses power. When you feel the grief, it moves through you. When you allow the anxiety, it softens. You stop being haunted by what you refuse to face. This is not easy. Acceptance feels uncomfortable at first because you have spent years running, distracting, suppressing, staying busy, staying numb. Slowing down feels dangerous. Feeling feels risky. But avoidance has already cost you peace. It has cost you clarity. It has cost you connection. You cannot outrun yourself. Wherever you go, you take your inner world with you. New jobs, new relationships, new cities, same unresolved emotions. That is why patterns repeat. Until you stop resisting and start listening. Acceptance does not mean staying stuck. It means creating the conditions for movement. When you stop fighting the emotion, you free the energy that was used to suppress it. That energy becomes clarity, strength, direction. There will be moments when emotions rise fast. Do not panic. Do not judge yourself. Do not say you are weak. Sit with it. Breathe. Let the body feel. Let the mind observe. The wave will peak and fall. It always does. You were never meant to be emotionless. You were meant to be aware. When awareness meets acceptance, healing begins. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily, honestly, deeply. Stop asking, why am I like this? Start saying, what is this trying to show me? That shift changes everything. The mind stops attacking, the heart starts opening, and overthinking loses fuel. You do not need to get rid of emotions to find peace. You need to stop running from them. Peace is not the absence of feeling. Peace is the ability to feel without fear. The moment you stop resisting, you stop feeding the problem. The moment you accept, you start dissolving it. And little by little the mind grows quieter, not because you force silence, but because the inner war ended. That is when healing begins. That is when freedom shows up, not loud, not dramatic, but steady, real, and lasting. Overthinking at its deepest level is fear. Not fear of failure alone, not fear of success alone, fear of what you cannot see coming, fear of what you cannot control, fear of stepping forward without a guarantee. The mind wants certainty because certainty feels safe, but life does not operate on certainty. Life moves on experience. Growth comes through motion, and peace comes when you stop demanding answers before you move. Most people overthink because they are trying to predict life. They want to know every outcome before they take one step. They want a promise that things will work out before they begin. But life does not hand out promises. Life hands out moments, and those moments only exist when you show up. Think about standing at the edge of a swimming pool. The water is still. The air is quiet. Your mind starts talking. What if the water is cold? What if I slip? What if I look foolish? What if something goes wrong? So you stand there, you calculate. You imagine every possible outcome. And while you are thinking, life is passing. The pool is there. The opportunity is there. But you never jump. You never swim. You only think about swimming. That is how many people live their lives. They think about starting. They think about trying. They think about becoming. But they never move because the unknown feels dangerous. And the mind would rather stay stuck than step into uncertainty. Someone wants to start a business. They wait until they know everything. They wait until conditions are perfect. Someone wants to enter a relationship. They wait until they feel completely ready. Someone wants to chase a dream. They wait until fear disappears. Years go by. Opportunities fade. And one day fear is replaced by regret. Regret is heavier than fear. Regret lasts longer than fear. Regret asks a painful question. What if I tried? Behavioral psychology shows something powerful. Action reduces anxiety more than thinking ever will. The moment you move, the mind calms down. The moment you act, the fear loses its grip. Because fear feeds on stillness. Fear grows in hesitation. Fear shrinks in motion. The mind says, wait until you feel ready. Life says, move and you will become ready. Confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes from action. Clarity does not come from thinking. Clarity comes from doing. The unknown does not disappear when you wait. It disappears when you walk through it. You have to accept this truth. Uncertainty is not the enemy. Uncertainty is the doorway. Every meaningful moment you have ever experienced began with uncertainty. Every relationship, every achievement, every transformation. You did not know how it would turn out. You stepped anyway. Overthinking is an attempt to control what cannot be controlled. And the harder you try, the more anxious you become, because deep down you know life will not bend to your plans. Life will challenge you, surprise you, stretch you. That is not punishment. That is growth. Peace grows when you accept uncertainty as part of being alive, not as a flaw, not as a threat, but as a feature. When you stop demanding guarantees, the mind relaxes. When you stop trying to predict every outcome, the heart opens. There is strength in saying, I do not know, and I will move anyway. There is power in trusting yourself instead of outcomes. You do not need certainty to take the next step. You need courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement in the presence of fear. The future will never be fully known, and that is not something to fear. That is something to respect. The unknown keeps life alive. It keeps growth possible. It keeps you awake. Every time you choose action over analysis, you train your mind to trust life. Every time you step forward without all the answers, you prove to yourself that you can handle what comes. And that belief changes everything. You are not meant to live life from the edge of the pool. You are meant to jump to feel the water, to adjust, to learn to swim. Thinking about life will never replace living it. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for fear to disappear. Fear will always exist. The difference is whether fear leads or follows. Move first. Learn on the way. Trust yourself enough to handle the unknown, because peace is not found in controlling life. Peace is found in participating in it. The mind gets loud when the heart is divided. Noise is not random. Noise is conflict. When you are one person on the inside and another on the outside, the mind never rests. It keeps asking questions. It keeps replaying moments. It keeps doubting decisions. Not because you are broken, but because you are split. A divided self is a noisy mind. When who you truly are is fighting with who you are trying to be, the mind becomes the battlefield. Every choice feels heavy. Every word feels risky. Every silence feels uncomfortable. You overthink because the mind is trying to protect two identities at the same time. And that is exhausting. There is a person who values honesty. Deep down they believe in truth. They respect integrity. They want to live clean. But in the world they live to please others. They say yes when they mean no. They smile when they feel resentment. They stay quiet when they should speak. Every small decision becomes stressful. Should I say what I feel, or should I keep the peace? Should I be real, or should I be liked? The mind spins because the soul is not being honored. Overthinking fills the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. The mind tries to calculate how to survive both worlds. It tries to predict reactions. It tries to avoid rejection. It tries to protect the image. But no image is worth the cost of inner peace. The truth is this: your mind is not the enemy. It is the messenger. When the mind gets loud, it is usually pointing to something you are ignoring. When thoughts repeat, it is often because a value is being violated. When anxiety rises, it is often because you are living out of alignment. You cannot lie to yourself and expect silence. You cannot betray your values and expect peace. The soul speaks through discomfort. And when you refuse to listen, the volume goes up. Many people think peace comes from being accepted, from being liked, from fitting in. But peace comes from being aligned, from being honest with yourself, even when it costs approval, even when it costs comfort, even when it costs familiarity. Long-term studies on well-being show that people who live authentically experience lower stress and greater emotional stability. Not because life is easier, but because their inner world is not at war. When your actions match your values, the mind stops arguing. When your words match your truth, the body relaxes. You were not designed to live two lives. You were designed to live one real one. And every time you choose authenticity over approval, you remove a layer of noise from the mind. There is fear in being real. Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of standing alone. But there is a deeper cost in being fake. That cost is constant overthinking, constant self-doubt. That cost shows up as sleepless nights, as anxiety, as exhaustion that rest cannot fix. The mind overthinks because it is trying to reconcile two opposing selves. One wants truth, the other wants safety. One wants freedom, the other wants acceptance. And until you choose, the mind will keep spinning. Choosing alignment does not mean becoming reckless. It means becoming honest. It means asking yourself, what matters to me? What do I stand for? What do I value? And then letting those answers guide your decisions. You do not need everyone to agree with you. You need yourself to respect you. Self-respect quiets the mind. When you act in ways that honor your values, you stop questioning yourself. You stop replaying conversations. You stop second-guessing every move. The soul needs to be heard. When it is ignored, it protests. When it is silenced, it creates noise. When it is honored, it rests. Think about how heavy it feels to say yes when you mean no. Think about how tense your body feels when you pretend. That tension is information. It is telling you something is off, that something needs attention. Inner peace emerges when you live in alignment, even if it costs approval. Especially if it costs approval, because approval that requires self-betrayal is never worth it. You will lose some people when you choose authenticity, but you will gain clarity. You will gain peace. You will gain yourself. And the people who remain will know the real you. The mind quiets when the soul feels heard. When your actions say, I respect myself. When your choices say, I honor my truth. When your life reflects your values. The noise fades. You were never meant to overthink every step. You were meant to walk with conviction. Conviction comes from alignment. Alignment comes from honesty. Honesty begins with listening to yourself. Stop asking what will they think. Start asking what do I believe. Stop asking how can I be liked. Start asking how can I be real. The moment you answer those questions, the mind begins to settle. Peace is not found in perfection. Peace is found in integrity. When your inner world and outer world match, there is nothing left to argue about. The battle ends. The mind rests. And you finally experience what it feels like to be whole. When the mind has no meaning, it starts to wander. When it has no direction, it looks for distraction. When it has no purpose, it fills the silence with worry. A restless mind is often not a weak mind. It is a hungry mind. It is searching for something bigger than fear, something bigger than comfort, something worth carrying the weight of life for. Many people think peace comes from having an easy life, from having less problems, from having more comfort. But look closely at people who have everything and still feel empty. The mind races because it has nothing meaningful to focus on. Comfort alone does not calm the mind. Meaning does. There are people who have endured unimaginable hardship and still remain mentally strong. War survivors who lost everything yet kept their dignity. Caregivers who sacrifice daily and still show up with strength. Individuals who wake up every morning driven by a mission bigger than themselves. Their peace does not come from comfort. It comes from meaning. It comes from knowing why they endure. It comes from knowing their pain serves a purpose. When life lacks purpose, thoughts become restless. The mind starts creating problems because it has no direction. It replays the past. It worries about the future. It obsesses over things that do not matter. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants to feel useful. The mind needs a reason to move forward. Psychological research consistently shows that a sense of purpose reduces anxiety and depression even under stress. People with meaning handle pressure better. They recover faster. They experience less mental noise, because when you know where you are going, you do not panic at every obstacle. A mind with meaning knows why it wakes up. A mind with meaning knows what it is building toward. A mind with meaning does not need to obsess because it has direction. Think about this. When you are deeply focused on something important, distractions lose power. When you are committed to something meaningful, worries becomes smaller. When your life has direction, fear does not disappear, but it no longer leads. Many people overthink because they are living without a clear why. They ask what if something goes wrong because they do not know what they are moving toward. Uncertainty feels terrifying when there is no destination, but uncertainty feels manageable when there is purpose. Meaning does not have to be grand. It does not have to be world-changing. Meaning can be taking care of your family. It can be becoming better than you were yesterday. It can be serving others. It can be mastering your craft. It can be healing yourself so you do not pass pain forward. What matters is that it is real to you. Borrowed goals do not calm the mind. Chasing what others expect will not bring peace. Meaning has to be personal. It has to speak to your values. It has to move you even when no one is watching. A mind without meaning seeks validation. It seeks approval. It seeks distraction. It scrolls endlessly. It worries endlessly. It thinks endlessly because it has no anchor. When you give your life meaning, you give your mind an anchor. Something solid. Something steady. Something to return to when things get hard. People often ask, how do I stop overthinking? The answer is not think less. The answer is live for more. Live for something that matters. When you wake up with purpose, the mind aligns. When you go to sleep, knowing your day mattered, the noise fades. Meaning gives pain context. It turns suffering into sacrifice. It turns struggle into growth. It turns fear into fuel. Without meaning, pain feels pointless. With meaning, pain becomes temporary. There are caregivers who are exhausted but not broken. There are survivors who are scarred but not defeated. There are individuals under pressure who remain calm, not because they are immune to stress, but because they know why they are standing there. The mind obsesses when it feels lost. It quiets when it feels guided. Direction does not remove challenges. It makes them bearable. You do not need to have your entire life figured out. You need a direction, a next step, a reason to keep moving. The mind does not need certainty. It needs purpose. Ask yourself honestly, what gives my life meaning beyond fear? Not what distracts me, not what numbs me, not what impresses others. What actually matters to me? What am I willing to struggle for? What am I willing to grow for? The moment you answer that question, your mind starts to settle, because it knows where it is going, because it knows why the journey is worth it. A life without meaning feels heavy, even when it is easy. A life with meaning feels lighter, even when it is hard. Meaning does not remove fear. It gives fear a reason to step aside. Meaning does not erase doubt. It gives doubt less importance. Meaning does not silence the mind instantly. It gives it direction over time. You were not designed to drift. You were designed to move toward something. When you find that something, the mind follows. Stop asking, how do I escape my thoughts? Start asking, what am I living for? The answer to that question will calm your mind more than any technique. When your life has direction, the mind no longer needs to obsess. It knows where it is going. And when the mind knows where it is going, it stops running in circles. Peace is not the absence of thought. It is the absence of inner conflict. When you observe instead of react, when you accept instead of resist, when you act instead of overthink, when you live aligned and meaningful, the mind softens. And in that stillness, you don't lose yourself. You finally meet yourself.